Warm yourself up and get ready for a chilling holiday tale because it's time for a new episode of Sabrina, and this one's full of holiday cheer. Part 1 of the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina left us with Makeover Sabrina freshly signing the Book of the Beast and on rocky ground with her boy toy Harvey Kinkle. This special Christmas edition of Sabrina looks to festively bridge the gap between parts 1 and 2 and sets up right after the events of the finale. At the end of this video I'll get into what some of this might mean for part 2 coming out this April. But first, how many of you were naughty this year and skipped the intro, missing this new image of Santa going towards the North Star? It's also important to note that the North Star was used by the three wise men on their journey to meet Jesus when he was born. And who shows up at the end of this episode? 3 demonic wise men. But let's go back in time to find young Sabrina, well cast here with McKenna Grace, who you might recognize from The Haunting of Hill House and I, Tanya. She looks pretty damn close to Kiernan Shipka. Set sometime in yesteryear, Hilda and Mr. Putnam have taken Sabrina and Susie to see jolly old St. Nick at the local hall, somewhere. They also casually chat about kids in Greendale getting abducted. Susie asks for a truck for Christmas, while Sabrina just wants to see her mommy. Looks like this is the year Sabrina learns Santa isn't real. Flash forward to the week before Christmas, or as the witches call it, winter solstice, and the Spellmans have set up a nice Christmas wreath featuring a satanic pentagram. Sabrina admires a photo from her favorite Christmas memory, that time she looked super sad and asked Santa to bring her mom back. The Spellmans celebrate the winter solstice and Yuletide. Winter solstice marks the shortest day of the year, and Yuletide is a pagan festival celebrating the wild hunt. And Faustus's secret daughter, baby Letitia, is here too. At the end of part 1, we left Ambrose amongst a crowd of Faustus's fanboys. Looks like with him here and knowing about the baby, he's still on Team Spellman. Zelda announces it's time to light the Yule Log, a piece of magical firewood that will ward off the spirits of winter solstice who intend to cause mischief on the longest night of the year. Upstairs, Sabrina confides in Ambrose that she's conflicted about how to handle being a witch with mortal friends, and she wishes she could ask her mother's advice. She also reveals she saw her mom in limbo. You'll remember in part 1, Sabrina ran into her mother while trying to save Tommy Kinkle from limbo, and in my Ending Explained video I speculated that must mean Diana Spellman has some unfinished business. So Sabrina comes up with the idea to communicate with her mom through a seance. After all, winter solstice is when the veil between the living and the dead is at its thinnest, thus the need for extra protective measures like the Yule Log. But Ambrose doesn't seem too keen on the idea of messing with the dead. So what does Sabrina do every time her family says not to do something? She heads to Miss Wardwell, aka Madame Satan. Looks like Wardwell is getting the cold shoulder from the Dark Lord now that a new younger model has signed the Book of the Beast. Typical. Naturally, when Sabrina asks for a Book of the Dead to help with her seance, Wardwell hands it right over. Then the moment Sabrina leaves, she begins to monologue to our poor stuffed Stolas that she mustn't let Sabrina learn about her mother's past. Sabrina asks Susie and Roz if they'd like to come along for her mommy and me time, but the two have got plans. Susie's going to be working as a Christmas elf helping Santa. In walks Harvey, and Sabrina and him go off to have their first chat since breaking up. Looks like Harvey's dad is taken to the bottle, and Sabrina tries to patch things by giving Harvey some magical crayons. At the Academy of the Unseen Arts, Sabrina asks the Weird Sisters for their help with the seance, and they agree because they're orphans and have nowhere to go for the holidays. Roz visits Susie at her elf job, and you can notice the strange dated attire of the mortals in Greendale. All throughout the series, we've seen a melding of time period fashions that continues here. This scene in particular feels like a throwback to A Christmas Story, but with more creepy mannequins.
You'll shoot your eye out, kid.
As Roz leaves, she gets a flash from her cunning ability. Something's not right here, and I'm not talking about Susie's dream of being an elf. After Susie's shift, she's helping out with the important task of wiping down the mannequins? Which seems weird until you realize these things freaking cry. Turns out Santa is evil and he's been turning his assistants into wax mannequins, and Susie's up next.
Boy, I hate it when this happens.
Meanwhile, Wardwell has a new delicious version of voodoo for the Spellmans. This time it's gingerbread. She even changed Sabrina's hair to white. Wardwell pours water down the Ginger Spellman house chimney and causes the Yule Log to go out, leaving the house vulnerable. In Sabrina's room, the seance begins, and Sabrina's mom appears. But before we can learn anything that might give us a clue as to why she's in limbo, other ghostly spirits enter the house, causing Zelda to rush into the room and interrupt. Cut to December 21st, winter solstice, the short shortest day of the year. Sabrina's concocted an eggnog remedy for alcoholism she plans to give to Mr. Kinkle, but Mr. Kinkle won't drink it until one question is answered.
There rum in this?
What a gem. Speaking of great moments in being a dad, Mr. Putnam goes to check in on Susie the morning after her shift. Apparently he didn't notice she never came home from work. Susie's too busy being locked up in Santa's creepy dollhouse. We get a good look at who Mr. Bartell really is here. Later on in the episode, they will reference him as a demon named Bartell, which is another name for what we commonly know as Krampus. For those of you who don't know, Krampus is the anti-Santa who, instead of rewarding children during Christmas, takes them away in a sack, or in this case, turns them into wax. Check out the goat-like horns, a typical feature of Krampus. Back at the Spellmans, Ambrose takes a break from some holiday embalming when he gets a surprise attack from the ghost of the corpse before hearing the sound of children laughing. Hilda too has an experience that cuts it close, and Zelda finds the children have stolen Letitia away and placed her in the warming oven, which personally seems like a bad place for a baby to be, but that's just me.
Baby in the oven.
Apparently, the house is being haunted by the Yule lads, who enter the unprotected houses of witches on winter solstice and can only be wrangled by their mother Gryla. To sum it up, Gryla is a witch who's pissed because she offered her kid as a food during a famine. But once the meal was over, none of the other witches offered to serve up their own kid in return, which is downright rude. And what's with all these witches and eating each other? Anyways, now she's obsessed with anything related to children, and so she collects them and turns them into Yule kids. Gryla comes in and apparently has spent the last 1,000 years applying eyeshadow. Zelda and Hilda offer some lovely pastries in exchange for wrangling her spirits, but all Gryla's really here for is the gin.
Let's get the party started.
Let's get the party started.
Meanwhile, Ambrose hits up Luke's Christmas party that's apparently for warlocks only.
No girls allowed.
As Gryla gets a sufficient amount of gin and goes to leave, she hears Letitia cry out when Sabrina drops her pacifier. Since Gryla's all baby crazy, she changes course and won't take her Yule boys till she gets the child. As Gryla and Zelda have a Mexican standoff over the baby, the spirit of Diana Spellman appears, wearing the crown of St. Lucy, who is most commonly known for the celebration of St. Lucy's Day, a feast that marks the lighting of the first Christ candle around Christmas time. Diana also mentions being brought both by mortal and infernal spirits, the demon Lucy being the infernal. This theme of duality, good and evil, night and light, is a constant in the show and continues here. But most importantly, Mama Spellman has a suggestion on how to settle the matter. Baby Tug of War. This game of baby pulling is also very similar to the Judgment of Solomon, in which King Solomon of Israel ruled between two women, both claiming to be the mother of a child. Solomon revealed their true feelings in relationship to the child by suggesting to cut the baby in two. And just like the true mother in the story, Zelda breaks away, rather losing the child than risking hurting her. So Gryla heads back to the mountains, child in hand. But of course this is another scheme set up by Sabrina. The child was a fake, an enchanted teddy bear to fool the witch. There's a knock at the door and it's Roz, frantic that Susie's gone missing. She fills Sabrina and the Spellmans in on her cunning vision of Mr. Bartell as a demon, which Hilda confirms. Zelda then tracks him down using the magic of the mortal phone book, and the gang zooms off to save an elf. Just as Bartell is about to add Susie to his version of Madame Tussauds, Gryla shows up. She's been tipped off by the Spellmans that someone's been messing with children, and that really grinds her gears. Susie escapes and Bartell gets a taste of his own wax medicine as Gryla turns him into Lumiere. After the wild events of the solstice, Zelda decides it would be safer to leave Letitia with Dismelda. You'll remember Dismelda as the Witch of the Woods from the Feast of Feasts episode. Sabrina gets one final visit from her mother, who recommends Sabrina not lead her mortal friends down the path of the night along with her, before vanishing into the wind. Harvey comes around to inform Sabrina that the eggnog worked, but to stop magic fixing his life. He doesn't trust it after she, turned his brother into a zombie and basically forced him to shoot his bro in the head. Sabrina returns to a nice family solstice by the fire, and oh, Luke is there. Look at him, even when he's supposed to be nice, he just seems so evil. Evil, I say. Sabrina gives us one of these.
And Satan bless us. Everyone.
God bless us. Everyone.
And Ambrose reads a Christmas carol. All the while, three demons emerge from the Kinkle mine to leave the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina on an ominous note until April. So where does this leave us for part 2? First of all, the three wise demons at the end. The big clue for the next part as I see it. These three heavily mirror the three wise men in the story of the birth of Jesus Christ. The wise men being the ones who prophesize Christ's coming. Three wise demons could mean the coming of the opposite, the Antichrist. Perhaps right in time for season 2. We can also expect Roz and Susie to be in a lot more magical danger this upcoming season, just like Susie was here. Now that they know Sabrina's a witch, there's nothing stopping them from stepping in some deep witchly voodoo doo-doo. Sabrina and Harvey are as will they won't they as ever. Harvey's not willing to forget everything Sabrina did at the end of part 1, but he's also not willing to completely sever his connection with her. And you know Nick is going to try to get on this too. Will Zelda actually go through giving away Letitia? Something tells me after that tug of war with Gryla, it's not going to be that easy for her. And if they were able to contact Diana Spellman, what's stopping them from being able to do the same with Edward? Will Salem ever speak? Will Luke ever reveal he's pure evil? That's it for the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, a MidWinter's Tale. If you enjoy this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and share it. It's going to be a few more months until Sabrina comes back, but until then I'll still be breaking down tons of great shows and movies, so be sure to stay tuned. Until April, keep walking that path of night, and remember, Daddy loves you very much.